Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Each week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by cinematographer Todd McMullen, whose work includes The Newsroom, Santa Clarita Diet, and more recently, Apple TV Plus's Palm Royale. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I do have one question I have to ask, which is completely non-cinematographer related, and that is getting to work with Carol Burnett. I mean, like the whole cast on Palm Royale is phenomenal. But you got to sort of see Carol Burnett perform, and I'm just wondering what was it like with Kristen Wiig and Carol on set?
Well, my perspective, everybody was, first of all, so professional and so into what they were doing. I think that everybody was a little bit in awe of Carol. On my perspective, growing up seeing her shows and just knowing how of a comedic genius she is and the different ways she could take comedy was really cool. Now, when we first started the show, she, as most you probably know, didn't have a lot of speaking
Mhm.
scenes starting. So it was kind of interesting seeing her perform those moments without having the kind of physical comedy. But I know she had it in her eyes and her expressions. So I mean, it was fantastic. I What was really cool is that as we got going and could actually had moments in between setups and could approach her and talk to her. I'd learned she grew up in San Antonio, Texas, I guess, and I currently live in Austin, so we had some nice chat. But she brought in a photo, which was really cool, of where she grew up in a little house, and it had wooden floors. And so she had this picture and she's showing me and she goes, "See these marks in here?" I go, "Yeah, I kind of see those." She goes, "That's where I used to roller skate in my house." And I thought it was so thrilling to see her so excited to see that,
Yeah.
away from filming. And and it was just really cool because I guess that house she had was moved somewhere and it was still, a house.
Oh
So
wow.
all of that was fascinating to me. And I learned her favorite drink was a cosmopolitan, and she had a specific um, ingredients for it and a card made out for it when she would present it to the guy making the drinks or whoever's making drinks, the bartender. So I thought that was really cool. So it was just for that moment, it was really special.
I've been a camera person for 30 years and I fell in love with cinema. I heard there was free film school in France and I wanted to get into the French film school. I really didn't know anything at the time, but I knew at least how to take pictures. So I said, I'll try for the image department. And then when I miraculously got into the French film school, I fell in love with working with the camera. You're following what's going to be in the movie. So that immediacy that the camera allows is what I loved from the beginning. I'm Kirsten Johnson, and this is my course about documentary cinematography.
Well, and I just think like you said, she's not talking a lot in the first few episodes, but you can see it like there's the whole blinking, like tell me two times, or blink twice for no, once for yes, and then three times for maybe. And then there's this whole sort of blinking bit that goes on. And it's fantastic. Uh, but
Yeah, no, it's really cool that she doesn't have to say anything. She's just so experienced and knows so much about how to portray all those moments. She doesn't have to be talking. It's great.
So jumping to Pomerelle from a cinematography perspective now, um, how did you get involved with this project, and how did you work with the other cinematographers to sort of figure out the look and feel of the series?
Well, it initially started. I had talked with Jesse Sternbaum, the producer, before it even got going, and he asked if I, was interested. I said sure. So I started getting, I was on another show, unfortunately, and wasn't sure how the timing was going to work out. We had thought maybe palm oil might push it a little so I could just seamlessly move over. But it didn't. So we had somebody else come in. That was David Landsberg, who is a great cinematographer. And so once we learned all that, we were in touch, talking about everything that we hope to, portray in the show. And a lot of that was brought out by Abe's lookbook, and also talking with Taylor, and kind of his vision and reading the scripts and how he wanted to portray it. So long story short, we all came together to find the right ingredients to have the same look that we all wanted to make this show look like. And it was that's how we got into it that way. So it was all mutual, and we all brought different ingredients to the creative team, and it just worked out great.
One of the things I noticed, and I don't know if I don't know if there's like a certain pattern to it or what have you, but in certain shots, the sides would be sort of slightly blurred, sort of the way they used to with Vaseline on the lens. And I'm wondering, was that something that was intended? Like, what was your process for that?
I believe how that probably went, early on in discussions with everybody, especially when I first started talking with Tate way back when. We had talked about the cinematic scope of this and making it look very theatrical and cinematic. And part of that was shooting on film, anamorphic, the 2:3:9 aspect ratio, what you would present in a theater. And so I always wanted to use anamorphic lenses, which have the roll off and some of the inconsistencies that you're mentioning there with each lens. So we wanted that, but we couldn't land on any anamorphic lenses from Panavision. They're in such demand,
Yeah,
and there's so
of
few
course.
of the good ones. So at that time, David had come aboard, and he had the fun of finding all those tools. And so we ended up going with the Panaspeeds, the sphericals, but then he found this attachment stigmatizer that I guess I think Robert Richardson uses sometimes too, which would create. There were certain levels of these stigmatizers you could put on, which would create different fall offs and different looks to
Mhm.
those those filters. So those were what were used in a lot of that, and they really worked well in some of the flashback scenes.
Mhm.
David used some on some of his flashback stuff, and it was just absolutely gorgeous. I thought it was beautiful, and so that's kind of how that look started. And then I think as we started going, we had to kind of scale a little bit of that down because it was becoming too much, I think, at certain
Mhm.
on certain scenes and stuff. So we found a nice a nice mixture of that for certain scenes and certain frames that work really well.
So for you as a cinematographer, how much do you prefer to capture on set versus in post? Like I mean, this show might is a lot less digital or using VFX, but in terms of things like this, where it's like let's get it on set and then tweak it in post, what's your approach as a cinematographer?
Well, I think it's the vibe and the tone you want to portray. I know we had wonderful references with some Slim Aaron's photographs, and the lookbook had a lot of that references to Palm Beach, in the late '60s. So that's a great starting point. And to try to get that feeling and tone and emotional value there is trying to get as much as you can in camera. Now you got to have certain LUTs to kind of help shape some of that to bring out some of those wonderful colors and patterns and that look. But for the most part, on the show like this, my goal once I got there and seeing how everything was built and designed, and the costumes and the hair, the makeup, the sets, I was like, I can't get in the way of this. I'm not going to try anything. I'm just going to put a great frame out there with, a great lens, and it's going to take care of itself, because it's so beautiful. It's already set up beautifully. One of the things the cinematographers I think will tell you is they're always fighting sometimes white walls and things that you can't control. Our sets didn't have a lot of white walls. We had one set that was, like a hospital type set that did have white walls, but they had really wonderful texture and stuff. But so the point is that most of these sets had just were beautiful sets. The colors
Mhm.
were there, and it was already ready just to throw up a lens and start shooting. So I didn't have to think a lot about that because it was gonna be seen on camera anyway.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. He gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, and being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now.
Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
One of the things that blew me away is like you said, there's the set deck is really nice, the costumes are phenomenal, and they all have like I think about the costumes, you know, and how colorful some of them are. And you know, and same with the set deck, it has a very I don't know how to describe it, but then also like even the architecture of some of the building choices in it. So it all sort of has come together for you to like come and get a beautiful photo for them or a beautiful image. Um, one of the scenes that really stuck out for me, and I was interested in how you approached this, and I might be calling the party the wrong name because I know that there's a whole slew of parties,
Yeah.
but the one in the Cuban party or the one where it's sort of
Havana Nights.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how you approached that scene because there's a lot of different lighting cues and setups and sort of like I mean there's one shot with I think candles in it, so I'm wondering how you approached that scene.
Well, that's a fun set. I mean, those are fun scenes for cinematographers in the first place because you have so many things to play with, and you know, you can have so many things going on. It was interesting because that was originally written to be at a house, you know, a mansion, but we couldn't find the right mansion, so it got moved down to the Biltmore. And that I think worked out well because we had so much more room and freedom to do different things. And all the balconies up there were just so cool to be able to put people up there and, you know, different lights and stuff. But one of the things that was really fun with this is for me is we had a couple spots up there. And, you know, we thought, well, spotlights would be at a party like this. And that was fun because we could use those if we got into a dark spot or something or a place we couldn't really get a proper light. We're just like, well, let's just kind of wash that spotlight across occasionally and, you know, fill it into that scene and make it still feel vibrant and active, but also give us the kind of light we needed. So it was fun that way because we could do that. And then all the wonderful lights that were on the water, the bridge. And so Russell and his team, you know, just really lit that up beautifully. Had a lot of great time to go in there and put wonderful practicals in there. And I believe we even floated a balloon in there just to give some nice soft top light for the whole space. But yeah, that was a fun one.
I was going to say, because the thing that sort of piqued my interest was literally, I think when Maxine goes up and is talking to one of the characters, a spotlight sort of moves over and it sort of hovers and then moves away, and it creates that sort of party feeling. I was like, something's going on here that's a little different than usual.
And that's kind of fun because, you know, the way I work, a lot of times I'll let people just do their thing. So I'd be on the radio just with the spot guys, just don't even think about it. Just, you know, get yourself in a good rhythm to what's being played, make your own movements like you're doing it. So you could never tell somebody, oh, go here at a certain time or let's do this or do that, because then it just never would work. So I had all these spot guys have their own freedom to get there and kind of swipe and move to their own speed and tempo and rhythm. And you know, it worked out when you see it all cut together, how even editorial found nice places for those lights to shine across and make sense.
It worked great. I really liked it.
Yeah, it was fun.
And I also love that she was the only one who dressed up as if it was a Havana Nights.
Right.
I want to know, because it's set in the 60s, and I'm wondering, you know, what were some of the inspirations in terms of the look and style for you guys in terms of getting that feeling?
Well, it started with, I think a lot of the reference was Abe, the showrunner. He really was inspired some of the photographs of Slim Aarons, who was an old World War II photographer, saw a lot of badness, you know, in his career early on and ugliness. And then once he got away from the war, he started doing, as I think he said, attractive people, doing attractive things in attractive places, I think was his phrase. So we had that reference of Slim's photographs, which you look at are just wonderful. They're just beautiful. As I came to learn, I guess Slim never really set up a lot of his shots. I don't think he had, makeup and hair people there. I think he just kind of set him up with what he knew and started, photographing him. So we had that inspiration to work with. And Palm Beach, 60s summer, it's it feels like it's going to be warm anyway. It feels like there's going to be a lot of colors, a lot of patterns, a lot of different things going on that were just kind of new to the 60s, I think, because the 50s were pretty black and white, for the most part. So that was our inspiration, I think, taking all those elements that would be natural anyway, and just putting those through the lens.
Now, what was like? How did you approach your work with the colorist for this? Because it's such an important relationship that you guys have.
Yeah, that's a good question. David had worked with Siggy before, and he had set that up, and they had worked on some LUTs that were really, appropriate and beautiful. And then, so once I got in there with my stuff, I mean, I didn't have a lot there might have been a few things when I'd say, well, I tried to do this or that, but for the most part, it was kind of on, it was on the tracks and on its way. And Siggy's so wonderful about the way that he works with those images and, gives that look for what was established. I mean, it's working with pros is always a great thing,
Mhm. Now, is there a particular scene or moment in the series that was difficult to execute, but you're really pleased with the outcome?
Well, let's see. There was, I mean, a lot of the challenges were obviously the locations and, finding the right locations because it was a specific thing and we were shooting in Los Angeles. One of the scenes that I really enjoyed, Abe was directing, and I think it was one of the last episodes when Doug and Maxine are getting ready for the ball at the end there. And there's a moment he presents her with a present and whatnot. But we were shooting it in a mirror, against a mirror. They were facing in a mirror. We were kind of behind him, and it was a 3 section mirror. So it was kind of tough to make sure we weren't seeing ourselves and seeing all the badness out there on the set. But we kind of got a really wonderful frame. And the way I was thinking about it is, well, there's going to be some coverage here because there's some really emotional moments. So we kind of set it up that way, and then we just let it run throughout the whole scene, and the actors would move about, and even if they came back behind camera, we could not see us, but see them still acting in these 3 mirrors. So it was really unfolding in front of our eyes to be kind of a one setup thing. And it was just great. Once we found the sweet spot, it just worked out, and they had all their wonderful emotional moments. And I still kept thinking, well, maybe we're going to go cover this because it's very emotional. Maybe we need to get in a little bit, but we didn't. And then at the end, Abe says, "I think we got it." And so I said, "Well, you want to do this?" He goes, "No, I think we got it." And I said, "Okay, great. Well, can I ask for one more?" Because I wanted one more. Being the way I am, was when Doug stopped at the very back and gives a last look to her. I didn't really have a good light there because I just didn't think we'd go that far. So I put a little bit better light there. We did it one more time, and it ended up being one setup and this whole wonderful scene. So that was really cool. I really enjoyed that because you don't get a lot of those opportunities as a cinematographer to not have to cover something. And it was just wonderful. Worked out well.
Do you think, because by the sounds of it, it sounds like you shot a lot on locations. So because these buildings are much older, did you have a lot of issues with space and getting the lighting in there?
No, not so much. I think it was really about showing the grandness of some of these places. Some obviously we had to do with set extensions because they would be great at one angle, but it wouldn't cover the scope we were really looking for, because it might have just been the side coverage of something, but we wanted to see more grandness past it. So we'd have to do some set extensions and things like that. But no, that wasn't, so much as challenging. But But you know, most locations, when you go into them, you've got to learn the location. You don't just jump in and start knowing how to shoot it, because you got to figure things out. But once we did, no, all the locations were wonderful.
Now, I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
Oh, that's a great question. Because it's not going to be what you expect.
Okay.
There's so many, there's so many great shows on, and they're all great in, you know, so many different ways. But I'll tell you, I'm a 60 Minutes fanatic.
Oh
I just
yeah.
love watching 60 Minutes, and I don't know why. I know it's a news program, but I just like the way they cover information.
Mhm.
So I hate to say that's what it is, but you know, I obviously watch all kinds of other shows, but I always get something out of 60 Minutes that I think is relevant to me. So
Wow. Well, thank you so
that's
much for letting me interview you today.
well. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com and, of course, on Instagram at filmmaker_you. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching.